What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So I just got out of a screening for Godzilla Minus One, and this is a film that I've just been hearing a lot of praise for, and there's just been so much buzz revolving around this film. And really, the reason why I didn't go see this instantly when it came out is, one, I've just been really occupied and busy and having to unfortunately prioritize other films over this. Excuse me. But I've also, I just feel when it comes to Godzilla films, I'm just really uncultured. Because I've seen a lot of the contemporary attempts at portraying Godzilla, like the god-awful 2000s American bullshit with Inspector Gadget. And, I've seen Godzilla versus Kong, the most recent thing. I enjoyed that movie I enjoyed that movie for what it is, because I just found it really entertaining. But, as far as being cultured in Godzilla cinema, I'm really dumb. I just don't really know much about it historically, and I just haven't seen pretty much any of, the really good Godzilla films that Godzilla fans would consider to be, the top-of-the-line films that every person should check out. So I just felt like I wouldn't really offer much insight, in regards to this film. But I watched it and decided to give you my thoughts anyways, because fuck it, I guess I can't help myself. But yeah, so after seeing the film, I have to say I totally understand why people love this movie, because it is a pretty awesome movie. And again, I have to get it out of the way, which I'm sure everybody's talking about because it's what I've been hearing about it, is the fact that this film was made off of a budget of $15 million. And that to me is just earth-shatteringly insane. There's basically three, I think it's either 3 or 4 Godzilla action sequences. And sure, when it comes to a Godzilla film, at least the ones that I've seen, that's a pretty small amount. But this film really makes them count, and they just go all the way. They're again, for a budget with a $15 million budget, I just think it's insane how they were able to achieve this. Yeah, there's parts where you can tell it's CGI, obviously, but it never takes you out of the experience. It's all just still kind of mind-blowing and very engrossing. Just feels just incredibly gargantuan and grandiose, and it just really rocks your socks off. Yeah, the money that was put into the effects is great and super impressive in its own right, but the sound design is also insane. Absolutely insane. Especially the parts with Godzilla showing off his heat ray. That scene, those scenes are just so batshit. And again, it's because of, yeah, the effects and everything, but the sound design in those scenes specifically are so immersive. And again, it scenes like that really makes me upset that I didn't watch this in IMAX when I had the chance, because the creative use of sound design there, and again, just the amount of resources put into the sound design there, is just so immersive and so captivating. It is those, I think, again, those moments might be my favorite parts of the film. And yeah, there's, again, 3 or 4 sequences that we get with Godzilla, and they're all fantastic. Even one of the first ones we get, where our characters are out in a boat and in the ocean trying to battle Godzilla and escape. Those scenes are menacing as hell and terrifying, and just really well directed and just well realized. And just, I gotta give the film so much praise for, so somebody could have told me that this film was made with a 60, $80 million budget or something like that, and I would have been yeah, that makes sense, because it's just sequences like that where you feel because you see films that are made with a $200 million budget, and it just looks so fucking goofy and awful. This, not at all. Again, you can tell it's effects, but not to the point where it comes off goofy or comes off in a way that just feels like cheap. It just feels all very much earned, and really loved this film for that. And I'm sitting here praising the action and the sound design, and yeah, obviously that is pretty much the biggest reason why I do love this film. But I'm also very impressed with this film's ability to utilize all of its downtime, because all the sequences that don't have Godzilla, which is technically the majority of this film, obviously is doing its best to establish characters, establish drama, flesh out the more substantive elements of the stories, of the story and the characters. And it, again, makes great use of that time. This film has a lot of thematic qualities to it as well. There's a huge element of this film that is criticizing the Japanese military, but in another way, it's also kind of embracing what the military should represent. At least kind of like the spirit, and like the spirit of what the military should represent, which is basically a bunch of citizens getting together and being willing to put their lives on the line to protect their country for a cause that the collective all agrees on. And there's that, again, it's a very uplifting film in that regard, because it criticizes the governmental structure and motive driving military forces, but it kind of, in a way, likes to showcase what it's supposed to be about. And I thought that was a really touching element of the film that I enjoyed. And there's also, and again, in terms of character substance, this also dives into survivor's guilt. Our main character in this film basically is struggling with a severe case of survivor's guilt, and that kind of progresses and gets fleshed out, as this film progresses. And I think, again, it deals with those things really well, and the characters are interesting. And again, I think it is quite impressive that this film has a lot of downtime. After the second Godzilla action sequence, the one where he's tearing up the city and shit, after that one, it's basically what feels like 30 to 35 whole minutes without Godzilla or any action at all. But yet, most of it feels interesting, it feels purposeful, and just allows the audience to connect more, with the characters and with the story. And again, very, very impressive stuff on that front. And yeah, in terms of criticisms, I think there are elements of the film that maybe come off a little melodramatic, because there's a lot of screaming and yelling at each other back and forth, in the beginning especially, that I thought was a little over the top. But that's kind of a nitpick. Really, in terms of an actual criticism, is first and foremost, the last few minutes of this film, I don't think I'm a fan of, because, and I apologize if this kind of implies a spoiler, but it's just kind of too happy-go-lucky. It just feels too perfect and wrapped up in a nice little bow, and I think could have highly benefited from some risk. And it didn't really, in terms of character outcome and story results, didn't really take much risk, and I feel just kind of gave the audience what everybody just always hopes for. And especially there's something that happens with the main character, that's one thing, but then the final minute of this film goes a step further to give us more positive clarity that I just don't think was necessary at all. And in terms of that, I just wasn't a fan of. There's also this weird montage sequence that we get in the first 20 minutes of the film that, in terms of style, just feels kind of out of place in terms of where it lands in this film structure. Maybe if it happened like maybe if like stylistically a montage like that occurred in the middle or in the third act of the film, then maybe it could have worked better. But really stylistically, it just, I don't feel like meshes with a lot of the somber tone that we were getting before that moment. I feel like it just kind of comes out of nowhere. But I mean, other than that, like, I think it's just a really effective and mind-blowingly impressive film. Again, there's just so much here that everybody can enjoy. And again, like, sure, everybody wants that Godzilla action, and this film definitely delivers there. And again, like, the way that it's paced, it whenever the Godzilla action happens, you really feel rewarded, and you really feel like it feels more, you feel more excited to see it because of the fact that the film makes you wait for it. And yeah, so yeah, there's just a lot about this film that I really admired. Again, kind of a bummer that I didn't get to see this in IMAX, because it definitely feels like a film that would be beneficial to view in that setting. But again, I'm not cultured in Godzilla lore. That's when it comes to monster movies in general, like, I'm just kind of uncultured. Like with King Kong, I haven't seen any of the good King Kong films, so I don't know. Sorry that I suck when it comes to that. But just know that I do think that this film is awesome, and you should definitely see it and make time for it when you can. So with all that being said, I'll give Godzilla -1 a soft 8 out of 10. Really glad that I checked this out. And again, despite the issues that I have with it, it's still like an impressively riveting experience that even if you're not a Godzilla fan or anything, I'd be kind of shocked that if you just didn't get a kick out of it, because it just does so much so well. But that's all I'll say. That's all I got to say about Godzilla -1. I just did a review for Poor Things. So if you haven't seen that yet, please check that out. I'm going to be seeing the Iron Claw soon, so stay tuned for that. The Zone of Interest isn't near me yet. Hopefully in early January it'll get here. But that's about it. If you really enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.